What's up, everybody? This is DJ REYMO, Power 105.1. This is the Powers Industry, home of new music and entertainment. Our co-host today is Ahmed. Ahmed, how you feeling over there?
I'm good, man.
You know who our host is today?
Yeah, actually, special guest Dr. Jeff in the building.
Dr. Jeff in the building.
Membagaila.
I was going to say a whole bunch of
accolades.
That's
That's a lot more than I know.
No, that's right. Membagaila means the same thing, but it's not the same thing, is it?
No.
Everything's changed.
Everything's changing now. We're in a different world.
I'm just looking for my Pharrell.
Pharrell, we don't need the Pharrell. We're good. We're all sanitized.
We're good.
The studio has been sanitized before Dr. Jeff walked in.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
We washed our hands plenty of times today.
Well, they know old Dr. Jeff's a hypochondriac, right? You know, this fear of illness I used to have. Mm-hmm. And the funny thing is that this psychological condition, this generalized anxiety I used to get all the time, the obsessive compulsive disorder, all of those things, man, they're all gone now. You know why? Because I used to make this stuff up in my head, right? Really? The worried well. I'd make myself crazy. That's what anxiety's all about. But now we really have something to worry about, right? COVID-19, coronavirus. So all of my neuroses and anxieties are gone because we got some real shit to deal with now.
100%. I agree with you. It's no more making it up in your mind, worrying. Now it's real.
Well, you know, they used to say, DJ REYMO, that the idle mind is the devil's playground. Okay. So when you don't have a lot of things to worry about, then I don't know, maybe it's an evolutionary thing because, you know, we were built to deal with stress and anxiety. So we create stuff in our heads. But now we're dealing with the real thing. It's a new world, and we're going to have to change the way that we think, the way that we perceive, the way that we deal, the way that we love, the way that we live.
How about for the general public out there that have to deal with this new thing? How do they mentally deal with it? Is there any advice for them? Because I'm sure it's different now.
Yeah, you know what? I read an article in the Wall Street Journal by Peggy Noonan, and she was talking about the worst advice you can give is telling people, just stay calm. Because when you tell people to just stay calm, in many ways, because people are so nervous about this, they're not really listening to you. It goes into one ear and right out the other. And it sounds like that just stay calm is the person who's probably the most nervous in the room.
Right.
But the reality, everyone just stay calm. But, you know, the real deal is that, you know, we have to come together as a community. We're learning new hygiene. We're learning new ways to communicate with one another. And we're really learning the importance of relationships, checking in on other people, staying in contact with them, using what, you know, so-called experts like myself would warn about. You can't be on social media all the time. You have to have the face-to-face contact. You have the touch, blah, 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 blah. But you know what? Social media is saving us right now because we can't have that physical contact.
Right.
So, you know, what it is that you guys do is the lifeline right now because we've got to stay in contact with people that we're not seeing, people in nursing homes who we can't visit, our loved ones, people in other countries. I have a daughter in South Korea right now, you know, and, you know, she can't, if she comes home, she has to quarantine and then turn around and go back. So she's going to stay out there. So, you know, we're learning the importance of relationships, and we have to maintain our relationships in this very, very crazy, difficult time that we're going through with COVID-19. One day we're going to look back at this and say, remember when?
Do you think this was a man-made virus?
I don't know if man is smart enough
to create something like this. Maybe by accident.
And women are smarter than men, but I know it's not a woman-made virus because they're not as crazy as men. You know, I really don't know. And as a social scientist, of course, you know, I think about those things.
Right.
But if you talk the talk, you got to walk the walk. I have to be a role model, so I can't put, you know, those kinds of things out there only because I don't know, and I still have to be the voice of authority. So I will tell you, from what we know now, this is something that is another evolutionary sort of situation, natural disaster that we're dealing with. But, you know, I know a lot of people are thinking, you know, what is this really all about? And I sympathize with them.
Right. Wow. Some people taking it more serious than others. I've noticed that, like, different age bracket. Like, the nightclubs are still pretty good in certain parts of New York, and then other areas, they're empty. Like, some cities just are not taking, 21-year-olds are not really taking it as serious. And
Right. And the reason that they're not taking it as serious is because as a 21-year-old, you're not the target group if you get sick, who's most likely going to die.
It'll go through.
Right. It'll go through, or you'll be asymptomatic, and we'll talk about that in a second. But it's really seniors like myself, people in their 60s and their 70s that we're very concerned about, people who have compromised immune systems, because you have to build up a natural defense to this until one day we get a vaccine, and that'll probably be on the second coming of this. Who knows the way it's going. But, so here's the thing. People going to nightclubs, I'm all for people partying and hanging out, because joy is a very natural and a wonderful part of who we are as people. We need that. It releases dopamine and other neurotransmitters. It keeps us happy, endorphins. We're dancing, we're exercising. But what we need to understand is that we need to be responsible as a community, right? So if you go into nightclubs, you go into places where there are a lot of young people, and a lot of you may be asymptomatic. What happens when you get into a subway? What happens when you go to school? What happens when you go home? Are you then spreading this disease? And that's why we see, at this time right now, this overwhelming sort of initiative to keep people at home, to keep places less crowded. And of course, they're pushing not just the hygiene, washing hands, not touching, mucosal openings and so on, but just as importantly, social distancing, trying to keep people apart as much as possible.
You made a good point there. A younger person that, they feel like they can live through it, they'll catch the infection, go home, and their elderly parents can catch it because they were out.
That's right. And what we're talking about is a migration of an illness, right? So this thing is just spreading around. And so and we don't know. I mean, there have been some young people who have gotten it and who have not done well. A few who have died from what I know of. And we have to look at what's going on in Italy, what's going on in Iran, what's going on in some of the other countries where people are really, really suffering. So, there's a lot we still don't know, but what we do know is that we have to be empowered, even though we are panicking, even though, it is a very, very scary time, and REYMO, we have to acknowledge that in people, not putting them down, not saying that they're scared. It's only natural to be like, what the hell is going on? What's going to happen to us? What do I do for my family? But here's the deal, folks. We can't control everything that's going on in the world. We can't control what may be going on with the virus, but we can control what's going on in our own lives and what we can do to mitigate and keep this thing from just running completely amok and decimating the population and decimating the world.
So let me ask you this, because here's the big issue right now, especially in New York. Schools.
Yeah.
So in the school system, you have one side saying, and a lot of professionals with a lot of great credentials saying we need to close the schools. On the other side, you have other people saying we should not be closing the schools. What do you think is What is your take on it? Do we close the schools or do we not close the public schools?
Well, I'm not an epidemiologist. Right. Let me be clear about that. And I'm not a physician. And I understand what Mayor de Blasio is saying, for example, in New York, that you have, a couple of 100,000 kids. And really, do we want them at home? Because, that can be a bit of an issue, having these teenagers, with nothing to do, being on the streets, being at home, what kind of issues can happen with that too. But, also what he's saying is, well, if parents need to be home for the younger ones, for the adolescents, for the kids, these are the same people who are first responders, nurses, doctors, other health providers, and they can't show up to their clinics, they can't show up to the emergency rooms, they can't show up to the hospitals, and on and on and on. So what happens? So you have to find a balance. So these are unprecedented times. What are we going to do about this? Now, I do know that, we've closed, the colleges, we've closed the CUNY schools, everything is online, events, sporting events, and so on. So hopefully all of those things should hopefully balance out what we might see as an increase in numbers. But, I would tell you that a lot of people would argue that we should be closing everything down. And because this thing is changing minute by minute, don't be surprised if at some point there's not an announcement that they may have to close down the public schools just to, keep this wave of this virus down,
right.
and, try to slow down what they call mitigate the transmission. We can't contain it now, but try to mitigate, the effect of this thing on the population and the numbers.
You think by mitigating and slowing it down, will it ever disappear like that, or no? It will just slow it down.
Well, I think at some point, again, I'm not an epidemiologist. I think at some point, the cases will go down as much as they can.
Maybe the panic will go down.
And certainly the panic go down. And as we spend more and more days and weeks living this new existence, whether it's temporary or whether it's, I think for sure it's going to change. And we talked about this offline a little bit, that it is going to change the way that we live, and probably for the better. That people will have less panic. We'll see store shelves, being restocked, and people not making a run and trying to keep up with the Joneses. Oh my God, if this thing is gone, I better get the last 2 or 3 or run and get it someplace else, or whatever the case may be. That's part of the psychology of the panic.
That's the mental part of it.
Exactly. But what the experts are predicting is that there will be another variation, of a coronavirus, but hopefully everything that we've learned in this season we can now apply so that we are much better at dealing with it if it comes back again.
So, just going back to here's my opinion on this whole school thing. I just wanted to get your take on it. I think that I understand the position of the mayor and everybody else about the schools. What I really feel is going to be unnecessary. I think that if we're gonna weather the storm for this time, I think that before summer hits, I think that summer school should be canceled. Because summer school, from my understanding, is a time when students go to kind of make up work that they should have completed over the year.
Right.
So at this stage, I'm saying, excuse me, fuck that. Tell them now there's going to be no summer. Because everybody know you in summer school, you're like, I'm going to play around. I'm going to go to summer school. It's going to be mad easy. I'm going to do a couple of tests. And then I'm in my next grade. Tell them now that that's not going to happen.
It's not an option.
And tell the parents that there will be no summer school. Because from what I understand about this epidemic is that it doesn't fare weather with the constant change. Like, it kills a lot of the coronavirus with the constant fluctuation in heat. So I'm not saying heat kills it completely, but it doesn't survive well with fluctuation of temperature.
I see.
So if that is the case, and I'm going based on what the CDC is, if that is the case, then they need to just cancel summer school. Let kids be home, because if you bring them to summer school, you're going to put them in air-conditioned classrooms where the virus will survive. And now you're putting all these kids in there and all these teachers and all these other stuff. I just think, and if the kids that got to eat, wrap their food, they could still come down to the school, get their food to go. Nobody said, a lot of restaurants are doing that. You can't eat in a restaurant. You get it and you take it back to your crib. You know what I mean?
So here's the thing. From a psychological point of view, I would tell you, I would hope there is no summer school. Okay, because kids are resilient psychologically, but they ain't as resilient as we think they are. By the time the summer comes, if this virus has slowed down, people are going to need time to be in the sun. They're going to need time to relax. They're going to need time to de-stress, because this is unprecedented what we're seeing and what we're experiencing. And I think a lot of us are internalizing it. Right. Even the brave ones like us in this room, we talk about, okay, we got to do what we do. Here we are working together on this day while a lot of people are at home, right? Yeah. But we have to do what we have to do. But at the end of the day, we're not superhuman. Right. And so come this summer, I think this is going to be an unprecedented summer, especially if the virus dies down. We're over that curve, that people will need to rest and relax and be able to process what they've been through. And I think we're going to see a run on therapists. We're going to see, some issues with relationships, because people are going to, and you're going to see partying like Prince said, like it's 1999. I agree. It's so interesting. That song he wrote, "Let's Go Crazy," right? He wrote that as a Jehovah's Witness, and what were the words? "Let's go crazy."
Like it's
I'm so
1999.
excited. Like it's I'm so excited. I don't know why. Maybe it's because we're all gonna die. So even we see the prophecies in the religions and so on, and a lot of people buy into it. A lot of people believe in it, and so there's that component of it too. A lot of people see this as the last days, as a warning from Jehovah, and so on. And one of the things, Ahmed, we didn't talk about is since I last saw you, I became an interfaith minister. Right? So I figure at my age, I figure at my age, I need a couple of extra brownie points since I'm getting to the pearly gates a little bit closer. I'm in the third quarter of the football game. You know what I'm saying?
So we can't go to the strip club no more?
No more strip clubs.
So what I'm going to tell Keisha, man?
Yeah, right? But now, here's the interesting thing. The last time I went to a strip club was when I was 20, maybe 7 years old, and I'm going to be 64 in May. You know what kept me out of strip clubs? The fear of bacteria and disease. I'm not touching anything. That hypochondriasis, generalized anxiety, and obsessive compulsive disorder has made my life miserable. But guess what? It kept me safe.
You're still here.
Everything is in divine order.
Makes sense. It makes sense.
In case you guys are just tuning in now, we are here with Dr. Jeff, celebrity psychologist, therapist, just all around cool dude, telling us how to weather the coronavirus.
Yes.
I know y'all want to hear the whole love and hip hop and all that, but we're gonna slow that down for this coronavirus.
Right, exactly.
It's a priority.
It's a priority.
Exactly.
You know what
Now that's a reality show. What's going on with coronavirus, and my prediction, of course, is you probably have a couple of people thinking right now, it's not a good time to start looking at people and how they're dealing with it, but that's going to be either part of the reality shows that are out there now or reality shows by themselves, the new normal. And wow, I just gave a good idea away out there. So you guys, all right?
Somebody, make sure to give him credit for this.
That's right. You heard it from Dr. Jeff, new reality.
The new reality show.
How do you feel that the administration has been handling it, Trump's administration?
Okay, so I'm apolitical because I deal with so many political organizations, right? One day I'm doing CNN, the next day MSNBC, the next day Fox News. So, I think people know how I really feel about this, but I will tell you that there is, from a psychological point of view, that's how I always keep myself out of trouble, right? From a psychological point of view, we need leadership. When you don't have leadership, when you don't have people who think of ways to empower people, not drive them apart, not shepherd in a divided nation, but actually brings people together to help one another. This is what we need in these unprecedented times. We need leadership that knows what they're talking about. We need leadership that's going to follow through on what needs to be done in order for us to weather the storm here. And we need leadership that's going to bring people together, not put out all sorts of, conspiracy theories and, have people at each other's throats as we've been in the past 3 years. So we certainly need leadership. That's the way for us to get through this.
I have a question. I haven't been really watching the politics too much, but has the leadership done anything about the financial situation that's been affected because people are not working, people are not generating money? Is anything going on with that? I don't know if you...
Well, yeah. So Nancy Pelosi has been negotiating with the Trump administration, Mnuchin, Treasury Department, and so on, to look at getting, a stimulant package out there. My concern with it is that it will benefit big business.
I was going to ask you, will it help everybody or will it just go to the top tier?
Well, it's that old trickle-down thing, and I haven't seen that work yet, right? So it goes to the airlines that have been, affected. It's going to go to big business. It's going to go probably to banks and so on. But the aim of it is to give, as much sick leave to people as much as possible. Now we know the importance of universal health care, right?
Yep.
As Bernie would say it, now we know it's important for us, for all of us, to have universal health care because it's important to our survival, especially at these times. So, that should be part of a stimulus package. And we need to come together to help people who have to go to work and help them watch their kids. This is where it takes a village. This is where we have to communicate with one another around those sorts of issues on how we watch each other's kids and so on, and also be careful with that. We know that has had issues too, right?
Yeah.
Only people you really, really trust being around your kids. But this is why I think we're going to come out of this stronger, because more of a sense of community, more of a sense of being responsible with not passing the virus,
right,
and certainly being responsible with keeping other people safe, looking at our elders in a much different way, because they are,
at risk.
they are at risk, but they are part of the foundation of who we are today.
Right.
They are the cumulative experience, the ages, the wisdom, and it's important to have them. For someone who's 75, 80, 85, 90 years old, we shouldn't be looking at them as that they're at the end of life. We should look at them as, we bow to you because you've made it this far. They've earned that. Those are 5-star generals.
Right.
So we're learning all of these things, and we're learning better hygiene. If you've noticed, people seem to be, in my experience, less colds and so on. We're learning how to, have better procedures in greeting other people. So we're going to have to deal with the new reality of, resistant germs, antibiotic resistant germs.
Right.
We have to be careful about, sexual contacts, and certainly we're going to have to be careful about social contacts. When you're sick, keep your ass on home.
Right,
Don't
stay
come
away.
to work and spread that around. So we're going to manage illness better. So there are a lot of things that I think we're going to do better. And I think this particular virus has kind of pulled the curtain down as to what may have really been going on with so-called leadership.
Right.
Maybe it really wasn't there to begin with.
Right.
And that's all I'm going to say about that.
So basically, you think Trump did a great job?
That's a good joke, though. Really.
So I don't know. I mean, have you found a lot of celebrities? Have you? And naturally, I can't expect you to break confidentiality.
Right,
We're not asking
right.
you to do that here. We're just trying to understand people who are in the public eye because of this coronavirus.
Mm-hmm.
It has to be affecting them financially.
It is.
On a large scale.
It is.
Because I know particularly for artists who perform, anybody who performs in front of audiences, actually, that's got to affect them financially, not being able to make appearances and do those kind of things. Have you found people reaching out to you who are celebrity based for advice, whether it's entertainers, actors?
People are going a little bit stir crazy because they can't go out and practice their art.
Right.
They are addicted. You guys know this more than anybody else. They are addicted to their audience. They're addicted to the adrenaline of stepping out on a stage. They're addicted to seeing themselves on TV, and there's nothing wrong with that. And now all of that is coming to a stop. Mm-hmm. And then they're also concerned about the money too,
The financial part of it.
The financial part of it. It's going to be affecting all of us in one way or another. Whether it's not being able to fill up a club, whether it's a psychologist not getting as many therapy visits because people can't afford it, and I'm going to work with people who may not be able to afford it to help them in some other way. But it's affecting all of us. So it definitely is affecting celebrities. But let me tell you what's going on with celebrities too. They are invested in something that is invaluable themselves, so they don't want to get sick. So you may see some of our tennis players have decided they're going to chill out for 6 weeks.
Right.
You're seeing some celebrities wearing masks more often than perhaps other people, regular folks have been doing. You're seeing celebrities who are sequestering themselves, who are quarantining themselves because they don't want to get sick, but they also, with their money, also have good medical advice. They can pick up the telephone and say to their doctor, not Dr. Smiley, but hey Bob, hey Jill,
Right.
What should I be doing? So they're going to get medical information that's up to date because they have the money to get the best of medical care and medical information. But all of us can get that by going to CDC websites, by looking at the federal guidelines and so on as to what we need to be doing.
Well, again, those of you that are locking in right now, we are here with Dr. Jeff.
Talking about the issues of life.
talking about his issues with coronavirus.
Hopefully this issue goes away in the next couple weeks. Hopefully it doesn't last forever.
Well, you know what? What we, I hate to use that term, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, but I think emotionally, we've got to come out of this stronger.
Right.
One of the things, I talk about post-traumatic stress disorder all the time. We see that with police brutality cases. We see that with people who've been mugged or raped. We see that with car accidents. We see that in war.
Right.
Our veterans, the brave women and men, who are overseas and fighting and so on. Certain things happen. They see people dying. Maybe they think they're going to be, killed or they're injured, and they have this, post-traumatic stress disorder. And one of the things that I do as a psychologist is, first of all, I apologize that anyone needs to go through any kind of trauma, and but there are a couple of things that can happen as part of post-traumatic stress. They experience the nightmares, they experience the anxiety, they experience trying to avoid anything that reminds them of that trauma. They have appetite disturbances, they have anger issues. It just really throws their whole system emotionally and even physically, helter-skelter. But once they get that treatment, psychological treatment, their different psychological treatments, they can either continue to be a victim, which means that they're broken. They can be a survivor, which means that they made it through and they have the emotional scars to show it, but they're living their lives again. Or they can be victors. In other words, take that situation that had their lives up against the wall and learn the most valuable lessons while you were down, while you were kicked down, while you were against the wall, while you were losing your mind, while you were dealing with a coronavirus and how it's changed our lives in such a dramatic way. Learn from that and come out of it stronger, come out of it as a victor, and guess what? All we're doing is preparing for the next disaster, whatever it is, but we have to keep getting stronger, stronger, stronger. If you remember with 9/11, people were staggered in the streets. I remember, riding the subways and people sitting there and crying weeks after. Mm-hmm. Now what we're seeing is people a little bit stronger in dealing with this disaster, a little bit stronger after dealing with Hurricane Katrina. So we have to prepare ourselves, especially as Americans, throughout the world, but especially as Americans, to be able to deal with these devastating times that have been visited upon us. Because guess what? As the world continues to evolve, as time continues to go forward, we're going to deal with, in this brave new world, more and more calamities, natural disasters, man-made disasters, and so on. That's part of where we're going, in order to truly be delivered one day, emotionally, physically, psychologically, as a society.
So, Dr. Jeff, you designed the policy. You were instrumental in designing a policy with, I guess the policy spoke to more of a physiological treatment for HIV patients and stuff like that.
Yes.
And I'm going to tell you, I recognize that HIV and corona are different.
Yes.
But the hysteria that's starting to take place reminds me kind of how HIV kind of came on the scene. Even though you got it differently. I mean, the fear was just that. Like, don't touch me. Don't do this. So I'm going to keep a mask because I'm going to stay away from the AIDS. Like, I guess my question to you is, like, what do you feel do you feel this is any different? Do you feel what I'm saying carries relevance to that, or it's not as severe?
I think it does carry relevance. I think in the back of our minds, somewhere we know that the transmission of this virus is certainly not the same as HIV. And unfortunately, what we saw was, our LGBTQ community being raked over the coals, being, prejudiced against them and so on. And this was a gay disease and all that kind of stuff. Just like, Trump the other day said that corona is a foreign virus. It ain't a foreign virus, Mr. President. It's in our country. And that's where you're now marginalizing Chinese people. It's a foreign virus. It came over here, as some sort of an invader. No, we're going through a pandemic through the world. And so what we've seen, though, that I find interesting in the way that we were prejudiced against the LGBTQ community, especially gay men, is what we're doing to Asians and Asian Americans right here in this country, right here in Elmhurst, Queens. You know, the way that, you know, many people are not visiting, you know, Chinese restaurants, the way that they're not visiting Chinese businesses, certain attacks against people of Asian and Asian American backgrounds. Again, this is where the panic, the anxiety, the ignorance, now we start finding scapegoats, and we really have to be careful. This pandemic can bring out the worst in us, or it can bring out the best in us. And so I hope we learned our lessons about HIV. It's not about one group or blaming one group, and therefore we don't mobilize. We must mobilize together as a society, and certainly as a political and scientific entities.
I was always wondering if you could catch it through food, because is that something that...
Well, again, you know, I'm not a physician. I'm not an epidemiologist. I'm not that kind of a scientist. There's information out there. I heard something that just like if, you know, if there's fecal matter, you know, in your hands,
right.
You know, after you've wiped, you didn't, you know, wash your hands properly, and you're preparing food. The same way if you had, you know, Hep A, you could, you know, now transmit it to the food. People eat the food and could get Hep A. So, you know, more than anything else, it's probably, you know, not so much the food, but the fecal matter. But again, I would refer people to do their own research on that, since I'm not an expert on that. But we need to be careful.
We definitely need to be careful. This is definitely some scary times we're going through right now. A lot of unanswered questions. People are panicking, you know.
But it's great. This is what you guys do. You guys are putting information out there,
right.
And that's what's important. And I would beg people to talk to one another, communicate with one another, share your ideas. It's not so much about, you know, biatching about, you know, oh, the world is coming to an end. What are we going to do? It's so horrible. But talk about empowerment strategies. Right. I keep getting text messages, you know, from my good friend Helen Stevens, who runs a diversity you know, embryo clinic and so on. She's a scientist, a real scientist, and she doesn't complain about anything. All she's doing is sending information out to everyone as to how they can be educated, what sorts of things they should be buying, what are the important things to keep in your home, and so on. And that's what we need to be doing. We need to communicate in that way to one another, and we can cry on each other's shoulders. That's all good. Right. Just make sure that you wash the t-shirt that the person cried on top of. Yes, we have to have some humor too. Right. That's important, right?
Right?
We have to have humor. And humor is great because it releases the endorphins, and we sometimes have to have a little light, you know, in this darkness.
Right. And as parents, how do we speak to our kids about it? How do we explain to our kids what this is?
Well, it's important that we know where our kids are coming from. What is it that they know? Before we sit down and give them the ABCDs of the coronavirus, right, of COVID-19. Well, what is it that you know? Right. What is it that you would like to know? What is it that we can discuss? And so, and also being able to say, well, I just don't have an answer to that right away. Right. But I think the most important thing we can tell our children is, together we can do the research. We'll sit down side by side, discuss empowerment strategies, discuss how to stay safe. But more than anything else, let them know that we love them, right, and we will do everything in our power to try to keep them as safe as possible. But one of the luxuries we've had in the United States is that, you know, we have a life where even in our poorer communities, you know, there is some kind of a safety. Right. It's not a war zone like Lebanon.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
They still have roof and walls. And...
Exactly. You know, we've just been very, very lucky that we haven't had to deal with what other countries deal with every day, with war, with famine, with disease.
Right.
You know? So now it is a global economy. Now it is a global community, and we have to put on our big boy pants and go out there and deal with the world. We can't be afraid of the world. It's not all about, oh, we're safe in the United States. Now we all have to share the pain.
Right.
We all have to help one another. We all have to communicate. We all have to be one community.
I agree.
I hear you. I'm just glad I ain't got to go to no more kid parties.
Yeah, right.
I went to one yesterday. I don't know what you're talking about. I went to a 1-year-old birthday party yesterday. I'm like, you sure you don't want to cancel? They was like, no, we want to have a party. I was like,
Well, you know what? God bless them. But I think I think the wisdom is going to be the more, and this is changing by the minute.
right.
The more information we get, I think one of the things that they're saying is, you know, it's the hygiene, the self-quarantining, but probably what may really slow this thing down is the social distancing and not having crowds of people. And if we can do that in the next couple of weeks, it we hope should keep the numbers down. So I would encourage people, you know, don't have large crowds.
Right.
It's important that you not do that.
right.
I mean, on that note, I just need to know, how's little Scrappy's mama?
What? What are you talking about?
How's
You don't know who
Scrappy's
Scrappy's mom is?
Love and hip hop.
Yeah.
Lil, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Little Scrappy mama, how's she doing? How's Mama D doing?
You know, let me tell you something. It's very interesting that you brought up Mama D, because I just saw a therapy session I did with her on, I believe it was paternity court or couples court, one of those two, that I did a therapy session with her, and it went online. Mama D is a hot-looking woman.
Okay.
I'm telling you the truth. You know, you think of Mama D, you think of someone who's older, whatever. You know, she's got all these ways about her. You know, but I've been in her home.
Scrappy
and-
about to have a new stepdaddy.
well, it ain't Dr. Jeff, right? But let me tell you, she is really, not only is she a beautiful woman, seriously, but her heart, you know, no matter all the stuff you see that she does, you know, and that's really her, her heart is in a good place,
Right.
you know, and that's the thing that people don't really know about these reality stars. You know, I know they come off sometimes as, you know, really being very mean-spirited, you know, they have a lot of frenemies and all of that kind of stuff, you know, and that's what the shows focus on. But I can tell you that many of these people, you know, if they saw you on the street and you needed something, that they would reach out to you.
Right.
You know, and they can't let that part of themselves be seen as much because it might ruin their street cred, right? But, you know, the fact is that these people are very, very generous people. And you know, they got to where they got to, not just by scrapping, you know, no pun intended, but also making friends in the community. Mona Scott Young, who does Love and Hip Hop and all of that. That's another woman who has a huge heart. I mean, she didn't owe me anything, and Mona opened doors for me that had never been opened before. As far as reality TV. David Armour, I have to mention him. You know, another executive producer who brought me back into TV doing all of the court shows. You know, so people get to these really high places, not just by expertise only, not just by playing the rules of the game, you know, in a stellar way, being the smartest person or the sharpest knife in the drawer, but also having some humanity too.
Right. And relationships and good
relationships. And you have to have good relationships.
Right.
You have to.
Right.
You know, that's the secret of it. You know, that
Success.
it's not just about, you know, cutthroat and, you know, being the, you know, the toughest person, but it's also having a heart and having empathy, which is what we all really need about now.
Really quick, the
Yeah.
Maury Show.
Oh, I love the Maury Show.
I
You
know.
are not the father.
So, tell us one of the most bizarre baby mama, baby daddy drama stories you've seen on set.
When I was on set, and what we've seen in some of these shows, by the way, Maury is, you know, he's the creator, Paul Farhaber, and I'm mispronouncing his last name, and Maury himself, who looks the fountain of youth, man. this guy must have a picture of Dorian Gray somewhere in one of his mansions, right? Great people. But, the young sister who had gone through 6 of these paternity tests to get the right, find the right baby daddy. And the last one who was not the baby daddy, this guy jumped up, started doing, calisthenics, push-ups, going crazy and so on. Jumping for joy. What I did not want to see. What I wanted to see was him walking over to her, putting his arm around her because he had been intimate with her and saying, I'm really sorry this happened to you. Right. Instead of running around the stage, acting like a fool. I understand he was happy, but, where is your empathy? Where is your caring? And I'm afraid that is what has happened too much in our society, that it's all about me, like the opera, right? Me, versus, what about us? Right. What about us? What can we do together? And I think that's what we're going to see more of as this coronavirus thing, goes through our, its evolution in our population.
I got one more question. I know you got to get out of here.
I'm good. But I'm heading to Westchester.
You know what it was? Because the corona thing, So I want to touch on autism.
Yeah.
And I had to write this down. In autism, the actual diagnosis, for a lot of our educators is, for our black and brown children is, giving them medication, and immediately they need this, they need that. What do you think? What other options are there besides medication for our young children who are diagnosed with autism? Like, what do you think we can do besides shoving medication down their throat? Because what I realize in the educational system, they stamp them that way, and the money gets given to parents sometimes. Not saying all parents are like that, but they get money, and then they get these special services, and then are there really other things we can do besides just shoving medication down their throat?
There are other things, and what we see the medication for more is, if there's also a comorbidity or another diagnosis of, some sort of an attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, or the child, may be, physically agitated as they get older, and so you need a medication to calm them down and so on. What we've been finding, a lot of things are going on. Science has been progressing. Children with autism, they're finding that, again, I'm not a physician, but they're finding that there are, dietary sorts of procedures that they can go through. Certain types of foods they should stay away from. Certain types of food they should be eating. Certain types of vitamin, they should be taking, like folic acids and so on. Again, I'm not prescribing that out there to the radio audience. I'm just telling you, what I've heard and what I know. Okay? So that there are, exercise, emotional and social support. But what I will tell you and what I've seen, it's absolutely freaking amazing. Parents whose kids have gotten a diagnosis for their child of autism, and then those parents, now I'm just gonna let you in. I'm gonna tell you the real shit. Okay? These are parents where money is no object, and when money is no object, what they do is they get specialists in there. They get speech people. I'm sorry, brother, I called you out, right? Because I know you got that kind of money. It's okay. I called you out, but it's all right. You're a man of the people, and you always will remain that. But, they get them speech services. They get them occupational therapy. They get them he's spraying them down. They get them physical therapy. Oh, now it's contagious, huh? Crook of your arm, my brother, not your hand. Crook of your arm, okay? They get them all of these incredible services where kids who were considered to be autistic may still carry the diagnosis, but these kids are functioning in humanity, in society, to the point that they go to college. They go to medical schools. They go to law schools. Bill Gates, people have, thought that perhaps this gentleman may have some sort of autism. So there are a lot of people out there who we consider kind of weird. Maybe their affect isn't what it should be. Those may be people who are on the autism scale, but are functioning. And so we need to realize that our kids who are being born these days, they're not like us, okay? Well, they're not like me. You guys are young. They're not like me. They're wired differently.
Right.
You know, they're born into social media. You know, they're able to figure out, you know, all sorts of intricate, you know, formulas and things that are part of IT or whatever whatever it may be. Chemistry, biology, it comes easier to them. Why? Because they are, you know, evolution has taken them to another place. These are the indigo children who are going to help us, who are going to save the world. So yeah, they're going to be very weird. Okay, they may not know how to interact with other people. They may be very isolated, but they are brilliant. And that's what we're seeing with some of these kids with autism. So what is the moral of the story? If your child has learning disabilities, if your child has some sort of autism, at the youngest point that you can get them their individual educationalized plan, their IEP plan, and get them their IEP services. Okay, getting them the speech, getting them the OT, getting them every therapy possible. The earlier you do it, the better, because their brains continue to change and don't completely mature till they're like 18, 19, 21 years old. So you can change that mash, you can refashion it, you can, you know, have new neuronal, connections. You can do that, but you've got to do it early on.
Want to thank you, Dr. Jeff, for coming out. Again, for those of you who are locked in, Dr. Jeff is the celebrity to the stars. You might have seen him on VH1, CNN, NBC, all over the place, man. Phenomenal. Brother has his practice in Manhattan, right?
Yeah, my practice is in Manhattan, but I do a lot of Skype or FaceTime. And believe it, you better believe it, DJ REYMO, I'm doing a lot of Skype and FaceTime right now. Again, part of that social distancing, asking people, you know, I'm not afraid, but, you know, I don't want you to have to come out, take a subway or what have you. But, you know, sometimes people have to take subways and what have you. Just do your best. Practice hygiene as much as possible.
Right.
Support that. So let them know your IGs and everything and how they can get in touch with you.
So if you go to my website, Dr. Jeff Gardere, .com, DRJEFFGARDERE.com, or just go to Google or whatever. All my stuff will come up because I have a Zaire Prosper is my social media director, Haitian sister, brilliant sister. So you know her. She's she's running everything for me.
Beautiful.
You know, I'm just like, I'm like,
you're the voice.
I'm like commander in chief. I don't know what the hell's going on. I'm just like, you know, whatever.
We just don't want you to step down, though. We want you to stay in the
man.
CEO position.
Step up. We all need to step up. Absolutely.
Well, thanks for coming out and hanging out with us.
It was a pleasure. Thank you so much. God bless you, your entire crew. You know, God bless everyone in New York, New Jersey, the tri-state area, and God bless America. God bless the world.
Thank you.
I hear that sound like you run for office.
I was about to ask that.